A deep silence filled the large, oak-scented lecture hall. Professor Abraham pushed aside the thick medical books on his desk and looked at his students over the rim of his glasses. Today, he wouldn't just be teaching about the location of organs. He was going to share the great secret that gives those organs life. Leaning slightly against his podium, he began, "Life, my children, is not merely a biological process. It is far more than the simple mechanical working of a machine." Professor Abraham caught the curious gaze of Salim, a boy sitting in the front row. "Life," the professor continued, "is actually the radiance of the soul. Consciousness is the light that makes that life visible. Without consciousness, life would remain like a treasure hidden in pitch darkness. As doctors, we can study the body, but we can only see the lamp that illuminates it through our hearts." As Salim pondered his teacher's words, he looked down at his own hands. Professor Abraham went on, "Life is a summary and the ultimate result of the entire universe. A trace of everything has been left within your small body, from the dust of the most distant stars to the salt of the deepest oceans. If the universe were a giant tree, life would be its most precious fruit." Professor Abraham turned to the chalkboard and drew a giant sun and a flowing river. "Think about this," he said. "The warmth of the sun, the balance of the air, the coolness of the water, and the bounty of the soil. If the delicate scales between the stars shifted by even a millimeter, none of us would be here. Life exists because all these massive gears are turning just for us." Just then, a small bee flew in through the open window and landed on the desk right in front of Salim. The professor smiled and gestured toward it. "Look, Salim, this tiny bee is connected to the whole universe through its life. It knows the flowers, it uses the sun as a compass, and it draws strength from the wind. Without life, this tiny creature would be no different from a speck of dust in the vast cosmos." The professor reached into his pocket and pulled out a bright red apple. "Do you know what it takes to create an apple? A single branch is not enough. It requires the light of the sun, the rain from the clouds, the minerals of the earth, and even the rotation of the world. To possess one apple, you actually need the entire universe. Life unites everything in this way." Neris, a girl sitting in the back rows, raised her hand. "But Professor," she asked, "isn't everything made of atoms, cells, and proteins?" Professor Abraham nodded slowly. "Physical causes are just the veil over life, Neris. The keys of a piano produce the sound, but the keys do not compose the music. Material science explains how life works, but it can never tell us who started the song." The professor held up a glass tube containing a tiny, vibrant green sprout. "Life is a direct miracle," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "No laboratory and no formula can create vitality from nothingness. We are merely the servants and students who try to protect and understand this miracle." Salim spoke up again, his voice filled with awe. "Then such a precious thing must have a purpose, right, sir?" Professor Abraham nodded in agreement. "Of course. The true purpose of this magnificent life is to thank the Creator with every breath for giving us such a gift. Real peace comes from noticing this great love in the universe and expressing our gratitude." When the lesson ended, Neris stood by the window and looked at the setting sun. She no longer saw the trees, the wind, or the sky as just matter. Everything felt like a giant work of art, connected to her soul by invisible bonds. She whispered a silent thank you. As the students left, they all felt that miraculous light of life glowing in their hearts.